This is my favorite day of the event because I love the panel discussions, because I get to kind of sit back and learn and ask questions. And everybody always finds it probably the most valuable hour. So with that said, I think we've got everybody unmuted. If I'm seeing that right. I see Jack, I see Al, I see Matt. Do you have Hal?
Hal just needs to accept the unmute offer.
The unmute. Very good.
I think.
There we are.
There he is.
All right, very good.
I muted myself.
So yes, everybody has a heads up, the four of you lovely gentlemen. If you mute yourself, you won't be able to unmute again. You have to ask the MC, Jenna, to give you the permission.
I can disable it for this section. This way
Okay,
you guys
let's
can
do
go
that.
on and off.
Perfect. All right, wonderful. So what I'd love to do is just kind of start with an introduction, gentlemen, for anybody that hasn't had a chance to kind of meet you. And Jack, maybe I can start with you if that's all right. And just give them a little bit of an understanding of your background and why you originally started working with Elite Resource Team.
I think 21 years in the industry. Got in the industry, I thought by accident, when I realized it was actually by design, more my calling in life to help people. I got caught into this just retirement planning only phase, and it's been very fruitful. However, it's been very laborious trying to convince people, even with the process, that I'm right and they're wrong, or they need to see things a different way. So been very successful up to this point, but just always desired to work in a team environment, not necessarily as a lone soldier.
Lovely, perfect. Do you want to introduce Matt? Because I know the two of you are partners.
No, Matt can. Go ahead, Matt.
All right, over to you, sir.
Yeah, so Jack and I partnered, now it's going on 8 years ago. And I acquired his securities book of business. Jack was looking to get out of that line of work, and we had crossed paths. And so I acquired his book. And ever since, we've kind of formed what I'll call like a yin and yang type partnership. Jack has certain areas where he is very good. And I would say that recruiting new business, being an out of the box type of thinker. And so we have partnered very well, because I'm probably not as extroverted as Jack is. And so when he can bring a client in, and then I can kind of direct their focus towards solutions, I think it works very, very well. So that's kind of how our partnership developed. And then, because of Jack's, always looking for a new avenue or a new way of doing things, we started with ERT, and then he knocked on my office one day. You got to meet these guys. This is what we're going to be doing. And I as always, I was more apprehensive about moving forward, but then did the diligence, and man, we have learned so many things over the years, and trying to recruit CPAs. And then the best ways to work with them, and we're still learning, and we're still trying to get those CPAs focused on the goal.
I appreciate that. Yeah, and it's a good comment in terms of still learning, because I describe it sometimes as like the wild, wild west. As an industry, we're heading from the East Coast, we're going towards the gold rush of California. And there's not like an established path. Like we on this call are the trailblazers, right? We're having some success along the way, but we're settling San Francisco. And like how you get that gold is all being developed here right now, like as we are working. So it's exciting for you guys to be a part of it. And you're sitting in New Orleans, if I'm not mistaken. Is that right?
We're just north of New Orleans.
New Orleans.
We call it the North Shore, but you have to cross what used to be the longest bridge in the world to get here from New Orleans.
Okay, very good. So from there, let me popcorn over to Al, Mr. Devji. So Al, if you don't mind introducing yourself to the community, a little bit about your background, why you originally started working within this team-based model, and also mention where you're located.
Sure. My name is Al Devji. I am in Edison, New Jersey. And I've been in the industry for about a little bit over 30 years. Started when I was 2 years old. And started with a major insurance company, worked my tail off, but just did not have a process. And I hated that. I just was in sales, did well. It's a great industry, but just no process at all. And then try to learn the process, trying to ask other advisors, how are you successful? What are you doing? Can you share? And in this industry, just people are not sharing as much as they wanted, they should have shared. They would give me just a little bit of pieces and trying to put things together on my own. Then I get an email from you guys. It's another gimmick. But now I say, where were you guys 20 years ago? I just love the process. Everything is a process, and we can now speak to people who are $300-400 million, no sweat. At one time, how am I going to speak to a person that's 10 million or $20 million? So you guys have brought a lot of confidence in us, and what I love about it is the process. And it's not by myself; it's a team. So
Well said, my friend. And you're in New Jersey, is that right?
New Jersey, yep.
New Jersey. Very good. Thanks, man. And then Hal, over to you, sir. So a little bit about your background.
Sure.
What originally attracted you to the model?
Austin, Texas. Been in the business for, Lordy, 29 years. Predominantly, I'd say predominantly 95% insurance-based business. I'm a little bit of a unique animal in that I've been in an insurance brokerage for the last 20 years. And what I love, so I've always, for years, ever since I got in this space, felt like I'm sitting on a gold mine, but how do you mine it? Right? Because folks don't traditionally look for high-end financial solutions in an insurance broker. So you're always running against that mindset or lack of mindset. This gives me that process. This gives me all the structure. People don't have to even think that they're going there for this. It allows clients to be fed into the process, and voila, it's an amazing thing. And I'll give a plug to ERT folks and News folks, is that if you're willing to put in the effort, they'll help you with figure the out of the box, the unique situation, because this thing can be attached to a lot of different situations and still be very fruitful.
Thank you. I appreciate it. Yeah, well said. I mean, some people know our team better than others here, but there's a lot of passion behind what's being built here. It's not just a money grab. It's truly a passion and vision to do something meaningful in a big way. Jack, let's bounce back over to you. Maybe just speak towards a little bit for everybody on the line. What's changed for you in the last few years since introducing or working more with CPA partnerships, virtual family office, just more of a team-based model?
Well, again, I'd always heard the vernacular, team together, everyone accomplishes more, but I never really saw it in action. Getting in this business, as Al said, is kind of a lonely world. You kind of get in your world and chug along, do okay. And, the sharing component is very much limited. And it's kind of this arrogance I find in the industry. Look at me, strutting rooster, if you will, because they're producing all this revenue. But you wonder at the end of the day, are they really making, a difference? So I've been doing radio about 3 or 4 years. A colleague of mine told me I should look at it, and it's been very profitable. However, it's still a transaction. I got to ride sometimes 2 hours to go see someone, 45 minutes, down the road. They tell me their cat's uncle's brother died, or, something to that effect. And it's getting a little bit, at 52, I lied and said I was 77, but at 52, I want the next 10 years to be very meaningful. And what I mean by that is truly doing work in a community where you can not only move the bottom line for the accountants we're working with in our own bottom lines, but if we can do it for the business owner, and what's the ripple effect that could cause throughout the community. So kind of come to the mindset that I'm really tired of working with the end user, quote unquote, a referral or just a client in my natural setting that I would transact or do business with, and really just want to get out of that altogether and exclusively work through accountants only. And it's kind of a risk given that we're only really deep with 1 out of 3. We've got 2 kind of ramping up and learning, but I can see what's going on with the one group we're working with that's somewhat winging it. And when they really start prescribing to the process, who knows what's going to happen? Who knows if they're still the one that is going to happen with? So there's that constant, but I've never been more excited about the industry and helping people in a deep, deep way, other than just a big grab and getting leverage. I think it's always been, I'm thinking right now, this radio thing, I was talking to Ken yesterday, what if we could create, for all the users in this community, a methodology that was turnkey, that they could go on with their accounting partners or other people, and you just add you in, and it's a different message that's being put out there. I mean, it's making me think just a lot bigger than I ever have in, over 20 years in the industry, and not just monetary wise, but just systems and process.
Yeah, very good. Love it. Do you mind sharing, Jack, because you talked about that one partner that's the CPA that's, started to get it. What does that actually look like for an advisor who hasn't had a CPA get to that point yet, where they're starting to get it?
Well, it's interesting. We followed the system. Matt and I did tax season survival kits, the whole 9 yards, and how this person came into being was a custom home builder that's a friend through my wife that I really don't even know real well, but he's very affluent, does well. And I just asked him, in passing at a dinner one night, do you have a great CPA? And he goes, man, I've got the best one ever. I go, why? And he goes, he laid out his case, and I was like, well, it sounds like I ought to meet with this guy because we're building this. Called on the guy. As soon as I showed him the new way versus the old way, he goes, I get it. We've been doing conservation easements for a bunch of years, up until, the Obama administration kind of, squashed some things. Not trying to make a political thing, just that was the political realm that said, hey, you guys are abusing this too much. And as maybe some people were. So then he had a couple hundred, 300,000 or 400,000 of income that he was getting from one solution. He needed to have filled. So when I started showing them, he goes, well, you're going to be a very wealthy man if you can deliver on this. And I said, well, what do you mean? He goes, well, if we can develop other ideas outside of just one item, I can tell you, I got the clientele that are working. Then I said, so how many guys do you have paying $100,000 in taxes? He goes to his computer. I've got 330 people paying at least 100,000 in taxes. And what's weird is, even when I handed them a check 2 weeks ago for 40 grand of work that really Matt and I ran, he might have had 3-4 hours of work. And I just said, when's the last time you made 9,000 an hour? And he said, never. And then he said this, he goes, well, when are you going to refer me a client? And I said, Stephen, your issue isn't more clients. It's digging deeper with the right clients. Remember when we did this 1-page analysis with, Paul and the team, and we laid that out. And it wasn't that, you do 1,500 tax returns. You want another person that's going to suck the life out of you for 1,000, 2,000 a year? Or do you really want to do meaningful work like we just did? And he still isn't there yet.
Yeah.
He's getting there, and it's hard for Matt and I, because we keep saying process, and he's still pulling things out of his backpack.
Yep.
More of a transactional. So that's the frustration we have is, how do you get a guy who's probably transacting, going to do a couple, 200 or 300 grand joint with us a year, to maybe 3 to 4 million potential that we could share, and impact a lot more people,
Yeah.
This is really interesting, isn't it? And Jack, I'll jump to you in a moment, but what you just said is it's the reality of human beings. It takes time to understand change and implement change, because in a way, it's a shift of self-identity and priorities. So they have to slow, and that's the leadership, I think, opportunity / responsibility is like the patience that you have to keep coming back to that discussion, and the persistency to hold true to that. Because a lot of advisors would be like, oh, we just made 30 or 40 grand, because if that's what you gave them, that's probably what you kept. And then you kind of let them start dictating how they're going to work, but it's not what you got to do. You got to see the bigger picture of how small that is compared to the impact you could have. Matt, over to you, my friend.
Yeah.
I know you're partners, but kind of from your experience, what have you seen change in the business in the last couple of
Yeah,
years?
and I would just say for all the advisors out there that relationship has taken 3 years to develop to where we're now sending, can give them a check for 40K, and they've got another check for 40K coming for another deal that's closing. So that's really exciting. But back to your question, I think what's changed for me over probably the last year or two is the feeling that I do not have to be the expert in everything to monetize opportunities. Meaning, before a couple of months ago, I didn't cash balance plans and all these type of things. It was just I was focused on my lane, right? So all these opportunities I didn't even know existed. So by using this process, you're really able to just uncover these opportunities that you just can't be the expert, the jack of all trades, because then you're a master of none.
Yeah.
But so that in turn has led me the ability to really focus and stay in the lane that I'm good at, which is kind of the investment management piece, and then let other people in the network of experts function in their role. And then that leads to this, which is just the increase in it, really exciting business flow. Jack will tell you, it's like, we come to the office now and it's not just like John and John Doe and Jane Smith. We got to follow up them on their IRA rollovers. We've got 401ks for businesses, all these other exciting type things going on that we just didn't have that flow previously.
Love it, my friend. Yeah, well said. Al, we'll jump to you. What's changed in the last year or two since, working in more of this model? And also we'll be sure to, Ian, I see your comment here you sent me, and you're more than welcome to unmute yourself, Ian. And I was just going to say, while you're doing that, we'll be sure to leave some time for questions here at the end. So keep chatting in if you have questions that you want us to get to. Ian, there you are, sir.
Yeah. Just before Al says something, I'd just like to comment, and what Jack and Matt were talking about really reminded me that so many of these CPA accounting firms think that they're doing really well, and they have no idea nor belief that we can double or triple their business. Now, I know that Jack and Matt, for instance, are completely bought into it, and they know that just by following the process, we will literally, for that firm, double their revenue and probably quadruple their profits. But I don't think it's arrogance. I think it's lack of understanding or just that they've been doing well in their minds for so long that they just can't see that they could do so much better and create a wonderful client experience.
Yeah, well said.
And Jack, I think it was Jack who said it. Why would you want more clients? Why? The last thing you need is more clients, actually.
Yeah. Hey, by the way, I wanted to add one thing, because they did ask for referrals, and Jack was like, well, do you just want to do more tax returns? And because, and they were like, well, we've got all these junior people. So when I got back to my office, I sent them 2 referrals for tax. So here you go,
Enjoy your referrals.
Yeah. So
And-
thanks for letting me jump in there, Anton. And
my pleasure. And you want to just kind of introduce yourself briefly, since some of the advisors probably on the line right now haven't met you before.
no, so hello everyone. For those who haven't met me, for those who have, they know my kind of style. I'm the unusual accountant. In other words, I am an accountant and I'm actually also a financial advisor, but I don't have the shackles of the typical accountant. And my role is as a partner in Elite. My role is largely in coaching advisors when they are at the fusion level. I onboard them at that level, and I also coach firms, accounting firms, with their fusion mastermind advisor partner, typically in a 90-day time frame. So most of my time is spent in that area. I also actually do some of the due diligence and onboarding of new experts for the virtual family office. So clearly wasn't born here in the US. I'm from England. I'm actually a long time friend of Paul Latham, coincidentally. So you know, unfortunately, you're going to get a big dose of British today, but hopefully you can withstand that. And you know, I have the unique position of having sat on the advisor's side of the table and on the accountant side of the table. So I think that's more than enough. But if anybody has any questions for me or wants to know more, please let me know.
Yeah, perfect. Thanks. And just to use an analogy real quick of what Ian was saying, you know, they think they're doing really well. And I oftentimes think of it when you meet somebody who's like in high school and they're a quarterback at a small town, they're a good high school quarterback. You don't need to take that away from them. They just don't realize that there's a whole different level when they get to college. People are faster, stronger, smarter, train harder. There's a different level of talent. And then you talk to a college athlete that gets into the pros, whole different level altogether again. So you don't want to try to argue that they aren't good at what they do where they are. They just don't realize that there's new levels that they're not even playing at yet. Al, over to you, my friend. What's changed in the last year or two since working more with virtual family office and CPAs in this model?
Anton, a lot of things have changed for the positive. I don't look at myself as a sole practitioner anymore. I don't have a partner, but I do have a team, which you guys with the team-based module, I bring a whole team together. So when I'm speaking to clients and prospective clients, I'm saying that I have a whole massive of team, and I give an analogy if I'm speaking to a surgeon, for example. So you don't need to be a specialist in all different areas. That's what we bring to the table. And so our outlook has really changed, and this is going to make a big impact. I feel like it's a 18-wheeler that when you start the truck, it goes slow. When the momentum continues, it's 90 miles per hour. So I'm just totally excited, you know, with the whole team, with Ian as our proactive facilitator and Bob and the whole team. The CPAs, they don't know what they don't know.
Mm-hmm.
That's what I feel. And with the high-end net worth people, we are speaking to them, and I don't need to make a sale. I'm not a salesperson. I'm an advisor. I bring the whole team if they want eventually it'll come to a point where they will come to see and say, hey, what are you doing? I heard, you know, you're doing great things in the community. Can we talk? That's it's where it's going to lead to.
Yeah, I like that 18-wheeler analogy. And I also know from your perspective, you've done a lot of work. I think Craig Stone, Randy Fox, and a couple others. Maybe speak to what work have you done and how has it impacted your business from more of a tax planning, you know, advanced planning, higher net worth doctors? Because a lot of those, I think, were your own clients or prospects as you were building the CPA partnerships, which is an important thing just to highlight, like the impact it's had on your own clients and prospects.
Well, just yesterday we had a meeting with Randy Fox, Bob Coleman, and the fee was about $30,000. And community, we don't want to pay fees, and they gladly paid. And I'm just shocked that they said yes. Let's
Nice.
move forward. And what's next? The gentleman was saying, "What's next?"
Nice.
And the father was he texted me. He says, "Okay, maybe we love this. So what do we do next?" They said, "We already told you what we did. You need to do is just get us this agreement again, and we'll go forward."
Yeah.
So now I know where that's going to go. He already told 2 people about us, and the work hasn't even been done yet.
Wow.
It's halfway done.
Yeah.
We're just at the phase 1. We're waiting for the phase 2. So we show them the problem. Well, Randy Fox and his team show the problem. And he goes, "Well, this is the problem. What's the solution?" The son kept on asking. Well, that's the next phase.
Nice.
So I'm looking forward to the solution.
Yeah.
I can't
Yeah.
wait. Yeah.
And just if you haven't done any work with Randy, he's one of the experts in our virtual family office. And I spoke to him 2 weeks ago or so, and I think he went off like 2, 3, maybe 4 other clients that you've worked on together have charged some pretty meaningful planning fees
That is
and
great.
doing some pretty cool work and pooled
Yeah,
income
oh,
funds, I
just-
believe. Yeah. Private
Yeah,
placement of life insurance. Yeah.
Yeah, they're extremely. I'm just excited. He did a lot of fantastic work, and when I saw the plan, and just nothing that I've seen in my 30 years, just in this one meeting. So, a lot more to come. Lot more
Yeah.
to come.
Love it, man.
You guys are fantastic. You changed my life around.
Well,
And everyone that's thinking about it, don't think about it. Just jump on. You can't regret.
it's a pleasure to have you, my friend. Hal, we'll bounce over to you. How has your business changed in the last year to 2?
Oh, man, it's, I'm like Al, you can just gush about it. So I'm in an insurance brokerage, right? So I don't want to demean myself, but it's not the place where folks would typically traditionally go for high-end solutions. And what I'll share is, right now I have on Monday, we're visiting with the client with Randy also about a potential premium funding case of life insurance death benefit we're presenting of 65 million.
Nice.
I have another one in informal underwriting because it's got some hair on it for 50 million.
Nice, my friend.
5 or 6 pension related qualified plan, layered qualified plan related cases that again, what I would share is this gives you the process, and if you follow the process, the cases come. Right? I mean, they just do, because it uncovers it if you just get them into the process. I'll share one mistake I made. I made the mistake, and it's easy to do, of feeling like I needed to learn about each of the different specialists before I really, and yeah, you got to know a little bit, but that's the whole who, not how. Just dig into the process, figure out how to get your CPA on board and get the clients into the process. And you'll become a true believer when you get one or two of them through. It's amazing the client reaction to what's going on. Let me give you one example, because it's kind of funny. It's the client is he just paid Randy that $14,000 fee, and he paid CPA about $4,000. He paid me $3,500.
Nice.
And he's got so many things he needs doing that as we started to get started, he said, "Can you guys help me find an executive assistant?" So now we're helping him try to find an executive assistant, right? And that speaks to how committed they get to the whole idea of a virtual family office. They will come to you with anything out of the blue. So we're scrambling to get him an executive assistant, because there's so much work to be done, and he's just overwhelmed.
Super smart. Because if you think about it, so I think that was roughly 24 or 25,000 of planning fees that this client's paid. If you have a client that's paying 25 grand, there's a lot of moving pieces if they can afford to pay that, right? So getting them an executive assistant, as an example, one is it frees up their time, it makes them more organized, and second is it's a great investment into the relationship. Like some of you have heard me talk in the past about a house manager, but I have somebody here that helps just manage our household. And the first time I heard that concept, I was like, what? Like, why would you pay someone to do that? But you know how much energy and time it frees up? So if you can invest in a CPA by helping them improve their staff, or a client by helping them find somebody like that, you just become so sticky, so valuable, and you help them become more organized, more efficient. The business just naturally flows to you. Yeah. Smart, man. Let's bounce out over. I do see a couple questions that I'll get to, but Jack, I'd love to hear your perspective, and then we'll just go around again. What do you think the next 5 years kind of looks like in terms of the opportunity with this model? I know you've been working with us for a few years, so where do you think this is going?
I think I'm going to do exactly what Matt said I'm good at, which is kind of being the front guy, have surgeons along the way that work with the CPAs and the business owners, and then maybe somebody else on the back end to do, thank yous and client events and things like that. I think it's truly gonna give me something that I build with ongoing revenue with Matt and potentially other partners. And not just be isolated to the North Shore, which is a suburb of, a metropolitan area like, Roswell would be in Atlanta. And so not just being in my own little world here, but potentially expanding in the other markets and taking a process that works and just finding the right partners to align with and expand. So.
Love it. So a lot of, it sounds like, focusing on what you're good at, collaboration with others. And would you say from a industry shift perspective, you think this trend will continue where the CPAs are continuing to be open to this and gravitating towards more of a proactive, holistic type of approach?
I believe they're right for it. I mean, they're under siege, we're under siege. I mean, every industry is being commoditized. So if you can't see that, I mean, just call yourself Ray Charles. It's not good. I mean, everything. I mean, we've got an entity that, that handled part of the cash balance plan that we're now talking to. Will it go anywhere? The jury's still out, but I now am looking at my competitors as potential colleagues, which kind of interesting in our industry. Had a gentleman, young guy, reach out to me from New Orleans, saw my stuff on LinkedIn, and he goes, I've been checking you out, and this really intrigues me. And so I'm finding that just other people are reaching out to me kind of in the industry wanting to know what's going on. I'm hesitant to showing my full hand. However, I'm trying to figure out inevitably how to, utilize them to help us beyond our capacity constraints at 3 CPAs, right? And so it's just making me think. Multiplying factor versus just me and Matt alone. Yeah.
Great points. Ian, I see you had a comment that you wanted to share with everyone before we jump to Matt.
Yeah, very briefly, to support the executive assistant conversation just had. I coach a very large CPA firm every Friday morning, and I've been coaching them now for 4 years, and they're a different firm than they were. And two things that they have done. Eventually today they've appointed, or last week they appointed 2 executive assistants to cover 3 partners' activities each. And immediately they brought those executive assistants into our coaching so that everybody is on the same page. So we're moving forward. That in itself now, we were already predicted that they'll be able to bring on to the proactive services at a real hit rate or a run rate now. And they have actually recognized that it's not an expense. They as accountants, they've said, this is not an expense. We will make more money because we have these people, right? Now, the second thing I wanted to say was, they also took a very, very big decision, and they're getting a new managing partner, and they are going to basically fire 40% of their clients.
Wow.
Right.
They've bought in.
Yeah. And they're going to work with less clients, more in depth, more profitably. And by the way, 40% for them is thousands of clients. It's not hundreds. It's literally thousands.
Yeah.
So these guys get it. Everybody who gets it and just dives in finds success.
Yeah, and I love your comments from the accountant's perspective too. You know, it's really interesting. Matt, I think we are going back to you.
Is this the what kind of the next 5 years?
Yeah, just in terms of how things are moving now, where do you see them going, both for you, you know, in your business with Jack and the industry as a whole?
Yeah, so I think that, you know, just from an industry perspective, I advisors, you know, I hear advisor and I think like investment management. And I think that the industry is going to move away from that. I can even see in the next 5 years, you know, outsourcing some of that to somebody else. So Jack and I can focus on kind of being the deal guys.
Sure.
In 5 years, I would, and I think before that, I think that that Jack and I will kind of fully develop our Pelican family office concept. We've been doing a lot marketing wise with Lindsay. She's done a fantastic job. So we're gonna continue to grow and expand that concept. I can see us here in the very near future merging with another investment management practice down the road. So we'll add an assistant and another advisor, and then really work to ingrain that family office virtual network into his book and kind of expand some of the value add to those clients. And then I just, you know, really like to continue to expand, you know, that family office concept. And I'd love to, I kind of envision it as we come in on Monday and we have like all of our, an investment committee and say, okay, guys, and then we pass that on to our juniors to take care of that. And so I can see us adding junior resources over the next couple of years too, whereas it's just been me, Jack, and assistant for a long time. So.
Yeah. I mean, what I think of as I hear you describe that is like, you know, building a proper business.
Yeah.
Not just much. Kind of a small investment shop, but like a proper business with a well-oiled machine, a team, and wonderful. Great. Al, I think over to you, my friend. What do you kind of see in the next 3 to 5 years in terms of where your business is going and also this model in the industry? Al Devji.
Do you
want me to repeat that?
Yeah.
No problem. We got confused. Al and Hal. Yeah, just you know, any thoughts you want to share on where you see this going for you over the next 3 to 5 years? How does this impact your business moving forward? And then also just what do you see with this community and this model moving forward?
I think that this is the future and you have to embrace it. You have to make changes to it. Just embrace it. Sole practitioner is not going to last for long. You have to have a team module. I was reluctant to get one of my son into this business at one time, but now I'm showing him exactly what we are doing, and he's excited, and I'm excited. So another maybe 3 years, hopefully, once he's done with his education, I would actually bring him to this industry. I feel so strongly that this is the way of the future, and it's once you have a whole team, I feel that it's so much easier than try to do it on your own. You know, you have the whole team. You don't need to know everything, but your team is there as a backbone. So that's the future.
Yeah, you just gave me goosebumps. That's awesome. I mean, I have a 4-year-old boy, as you know, and a 2-year-old girl and a 3-week-old girl. And I've had that conversation with my wife, like, what I want my kids to get into this industry, you know, and I've kind of put quotes around, what does that mean, this industry? And I'll tell you, like the first 5 years of my career in this industry, I don't think I would have. But I think what you just said really resonated with me. I would welcome them into this type of work. And that's meaningful, you know, so thank you for sharing that.
And just one more, that once I was talking to him about this and showing him the VFO and how we do business. And, you know, I had recorded a little bit of what the case we had with Randy Fox. And I said, you know, take a look at this video just for experience and educational wise. And he was so excited that he was speaking to my kids, his brothers and sister, about it, and saying this is an industry. And my daughter is really highly educated. She's getting her MBA from London Business School, which is probably #1 school in the whole world. One more year to go, and could be possibility that she might even come into this industry.
Wow.
Eventually, right? So it's powerful. It's a way to go. And if you have a whole team and you have Ian and the rest of the folks on your team, it makes it so much easier that you know, you don't need to go and look for prospects. They'll come to us.
Yeah, well said, man. That's amazing. Yeah, I just kind of had this thought, like, if I wouldn't encourage my kids to do what I'm doing, why am I doing it? You know, because it's what I've been used to doing, because I have responsibilities, because I got to pay the bill. Like, that's not good enough. That's not a great answer when we're reflecting on our life's work. You know, I would hope I'd be moved enough by what I'm doing where I would encourage, you know, my children to do it as well. So thank you, Al. Mr. Cromwell, Hal,
Yes.
over to you, my friend. Where do you see this work going for you over the next few years and this community as well?
So currently I'm working on it on 2 fronts, right? I've got the traditional model working with my CPA partner, and he's one of 5 partners. So there's a lot of room for growth there.
Sure.
I'll tell you, the relationship is so good. It feels really good to have that kind of relationship with another professional like that, where now I talk to his clients directly without any concern. Obviously, I try to be as courteous as I can, but there's a trust there that he's good with it, right? And that's an amazing thing when you think about it. I would throw out that Jack mentioned 3 years. You know, Brett and I have been working together for, it'll be 2 years around February. Right, so it takes some time. We've got a number of cases in, but he's made about 25 grand with me, so not a lot yet. But as I mentioned, we got a lot of significant cases, so it takes a little bit of time. Be patient, but you can shorten that. I really think you can shorten it to a year to 18 months if you focus more on process and less on becoming an expert in areas you don't need to be an expert in. That's a big lesson that I learned. This thing lets me, you know, 5 years, that'll be evolved more. I hope to have 1 or 2 more CPAs. But in my situation, in the brokerage that I mentioned, you know, I'm creating something that hasn't been done, that's more of a twist to this. And so, you know, that's the vision that gets me excited, because there's a ton of CFO relationships within that space. If I can get it set up there, then that'll be something truly revolutionary. So that's what I'm excited about.
Yeah, huge. And it truly is going in that direction, right? When you take a step back and you look at it, not from day to day, but month to month, I mean, there's a lot of progress being made with what you're building there.
Yep. One other thing, a gentleman asked about special needs within the virtual family office, and my response to that is your virtual family office will be whatever you want it to be. That's the beauty of this whole system and model, is that it lets us create the structures and so think about that. You can have all sorts of revenue streams underneath the roof of your family office. And will most of it be pretty similar with what everyone's doing around the country? Sure. But you can have different things that you offer, maybe that are a twist for your business. Yep.
Yeah, I appreciate that. And, you know, I tell advisors often, one of the reasons the client relationship lead is the most important role on the proactive planning platform is because a relationship can't be replicated. Like it's with a human being that's unique. It's you, right? And so we can have we can share the same experts, we can share the same process or tools, but the relationship that Brett has with Hal is with Hal. Like, it's not with me, it's not with Jenna, it's not with any other advisor. He and Hal have developed a true relationship, just like my wife and I have a relationship. It's very difficult to replace your relationship. It's easy to replace a house or a car or a tool. Let's shift gears a little bit. I mean, I have plenty of questions and I can talk all day to these guys, but what I'd like to do is just get some questions. I want to leave we have another 10 to 12 minutes. let's see what questions you have. Feel free to type in the chat box there. And you can either type your full question in the chat box, or if you want us to unmute you, just type in unmute. And we will kind of open it up for 10 minutes or so for questions. Unless you want me to keep going with mine. Good question here. Does anyone utilize attorneys in a similar way with CPAs, business attorneys specifically? Jack?
I've tried that. Paul and I talked to a guy north of Atlanta in Gainesville that was an estate planning lawyer, and we were going to try to get him to then go market to other accountants in his given market and work collaboratively. And it just fell to the wayside. I think it might be good to envelope them into the local planning team, but I would use the experts that they have within the family office. The issue I found with estate planning, or business people, they're relying on advisors, so they don't want to have any allegiance to anyone.
Mm-hmm.
So there's kind of that, mindset of, I referred a guy, he did work for a guy, $20 million business sale. And I talked to him last week and was telling him about this concept and all. And he's like, yeah, it sounds good, but give me another business sale guy, And I'm kind of like, he's more in the transaction mode himself. So not to say it couldn't work, but I believe inevitably state lawyers are myopic. It's a one-way street, I found. I'd say it couldn't be done.
Yeah, good comment. And I would kind of echo that with my experience. I had an estate plan attorney and a business attorney, both of which I, brought into the model, worked with, but they were never as good of partners or as active as the CPA. I had 2 CPAs, 1 enrolled agent, and those were my 3 core. That probably represented 90% of the business I did during that time period of the 5 relationships. In addition to what Jack said in terms of maybe being a little more transactional and a little less relational, if you think about a CPA and a client, it's a very unique relationship. There's a specific reason every single year why they're communicating, right? Taxes. And oftentimes, if it's a successful business owner or a high net worth client, it's more than once a year. It's quarterly, it's semi-annually. An estate planning attorney, it's a much more transactional relationship by nature. Like, how often do you see your estate plan attorney or your business attorney? Business attorney, maybe a little more often if you have an active business, but estate plan attorney, you do it what? Once every 3 years when you update your trust, 5 years? You don't have that same built-in, I've been working with this person for 15 years and I meet them multiple times a year. Like, there's a different trust that's established there. Stephen, clients are paying us a planning fee and we pay the experts in the VFO. Is that how it works? So typically the money flows the other direction, actually. They're paying you a planning fee for the planning that you're doing, right? That has nothing to do with a specific expert. There's a proactive and holistic planning fee. That's the first 4 steps of the MAP process, if you can think about that image that I brought up earlier. And that's what you're keeping. You're not paying any expert in that fee. After the due diligence is done and you educate the client on the options, if the client chooses to move to MAP 5, which is where they actually implement a solution, then they're going to be paying the expert a fee. And as long as you can collect it from a compliance perspective, the expert is going to be sharing some of that revenue with you. And if you have a CPA partner, we encourage you to share some of that revenue with the CPA. All right. Are the panelists actually utilizing the new Catalyst software system in the process, or are you just using the concept of the VFO and you have your own process? Good question. So maybe we can kind of quickly go through that. Are you guys using the client information questionnaire, proactive planning platform? Yeah.
Religiously.
And with your CPA and the clients as well?
Yes, religiously. Why? If it ain't broke, don't fix it. All you got to do is do a few of them and see the client reaction, and you're hooked. There's no need to do anything different.
Okay, good answer, Hal. Jack.
And one of the other things I've done is re-looked at people I'm giving free advice to and change that. So, I'll bring them back through, put them in the questionnaire, even if they're a once a year person, there's no reason they can't pay me for time. And any new clients that we're seeing, I'm really just, it's going to be at least once a year or if they want more, a guy told me, he called me, he's like, I want pre-advice. I go, good thing, we're changing our model. Let me talk to you a little bit about more of it. And he agreed to $3,000. So, just, I think it's all at how you position it.
So it sounds like, yes, you're using the process, the systems, the PPP. Do you also, Jack, before I bounce over to Matt and Al, want to speak towards using the outsourced proactive facilitator role? We talked about the proactive planning team. I know you and Ian have done some work with
did
Ian
one
coming
for a
in.
guy. He wasn't a super uber wealthy guy, but he has a business and he's not taking near the income out of the business, doing $1.5 million in revenues, electrical contract, taking 50K. So clearly there's some issues there. Not a lot of revenue share per se, but help that we can get this guy. So Paul's coming in. He's agreed to do a one-page plan with him, and Ian was on the facilitator role to do the questionnaire. So it's not going to necessarily make an impact maybe here and now for us economically, but what's it going to mean when the guy's taking 125, 150, 200 out of this practice, electrical contracting, and because we're going to do the work, get him a business coach to walk alongside of him, look at processes and procedures. So I think it's even those cases that may not be payday today for the team, but down the road it will, by us doing what was most of a priority to him now. He's got AUM and other stuff. We listed it, and we tabled it using the software, but we knew we could serve him best right now, showing him how to make more out of his company.
I love it. Yeah. Focus on the client need at the moment. Matt, I see you unmuted.
Yeah, I would just say, guys, we have not, Jack and I, we have not perfected this process by any means. I think the accountants that we have been able to forge good relationships with at this point, they're still a product du jour kind of mindset. One CPA firm, we did one cash balance plan with McHenry Advisors. That's one of our experts in the network. Fantastic to work with. And then every client needs a cash balance plan now.
So that CPA, the CPA now has that.
Yeah, and look, but what we have, every weekly meeting that Jack and I, we hammer the process. Guys, if you just make this, when you meet with your guys to do the tax prep, just do it. And the older partner, change has been more difficult. And so I'm going to really target the younger partner when he gets back from Europe. We're going to go out, our wives and him, and we're just going to chat. And I'm just going to see if we can kind of work the process in through the younger partner, because he's open to that change and sees the dollar signs and realizes what can be done with what they have. So that's kind of where where we run into some of the roadblocks is just, we haven't perfected that CIQ process with every client that they have. But we've been patient in showing them how this process can work.
Yeah. And I think that's a good thing to highlight. It's the honesty of, we are still evolving and developing. And yet, look, we just delivered $80,000 worth of fees to the CPAs. Like, I know CPAs that a lot of advisors on this call would look at in their websites, think that's the ideal CPA. I'd love to work with them. They're so successful. They're taking home $90,000 a year total, $100,000 a year. And so sometimes we can make a pretty significant impact on the CPAs even before the whole thing's really refined and kicking. Al, over to you. Are you using the proactive planning platform, the client information questionnaire, the tools? Al Devji?
Oh, absolutely. In fact, on my team is Ian Vellon, who's the proactive facilitator, and of course, Bob Coleman, who's this VFO concierge.
Nice.
All the time I use it, I show them the service level if they agree on it. You guys have done a fantastic job as far as creating that opportunity report and then prioritizing it. And then that's what the client really wants, and work with what the client works. What I like also about it, that if the client wants to think about it, they can think about it. So I don't need to, once I do my fact finder the old way, I would do my fact finding and then create a lot of work, do so much work behind the scene, and then try to convince the client to become my client and do all kinds of proposals and so much work that is put in. Now I don't need to do that. If they want to think about it, they can, because I'm not going to do any more work until they pay me the fee.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah. And, another thing I love working and having these conversations is just one about hearing your experiences, and then also just seeing how people are implementing it in their business and where they're at in their career. And that's kind of the point I got to as well. Al was like, I recognize I bring a tremendous value to the table, and I've got a lot of opportunity. I'd love to work with you, but I'm not going to do it for free, and I'm not going to risk whether or not I get paid on the back end. I think accountants really appreciate that, even probably more than the advisors.
No more free stuff, right?
What's that?
No more free stuff.
Yeah.
No more giveaways.
Yeah. Let's see here. When we say questionnaire, we're referring to the client information questionnaire, yes. And if you are familiar with our team-based model training, the client information questionnaire in Catalyst is built on the proactive planning platform. Similar concept overall. It's just, I'd call it like the CIQ 2.0. There's a lot more flexibility and more questions and ability to prioritize or drop opportunities right there within the software. You can save it, come back to it. You can pre-fill out questions if you already know some of the information. It's just much more dynamic.
Yeah, I want to throw out that, it's important to understand that everything with this is intentional. And even in the two and a half years that I've been on board, it's dramatically improved, right? Through repetition, through meetings with the advisors and the CPAs, this thing gets more streamlined. And what's happening is that each step of the way, the client is moving further into the engagement with you, further into the commitment, and they don't really even realize it, right? Because everything is intentional. Everything dovetails into the next step.
Yeah, that's a good point. I appreciate that. And what makes me excited about that comment is it happens naturally, not in terms of like a sales funnel or a gimmick, but it happens because each step of the way we're bringing value. They're choosing to move forward, right?
Yes,
because
and attacking the most important things in their world at that time.
Yeah.
That they just aren't getting around to, or I mean, we're uncovering the biggest holes in what they're doing.
Yep. Yeah, well said. We are kind of at the break point here. Bob, I see you raised your hand. Was there something, Mr. Coleman, that you wanted to comment on before?
No, I was simply clapping for Al and Hal's comments of what they were saying there. So yeah, that was an applause.
That was an applause. Nice. Let me just give you guys the final floor. Hal, Jack, Matt, or Al, before we go to break, is there anything else that you wanted to comment on that we haven't had a chance to touch on before we wrap?
I want to say one thing, and it was something that resonated in Nashville, and I've seen it in action with Bruce, and it was the gentleman that did the premium financing presentation. He was probably the best dressed guy I've ever seen. What was his name again?
Darren Sugiyama. Yeah.
Darren. Yeah. Darren said there was a good quote from Deion Sanders that said, "If you give me the ball, I'm going to score a touchdown." And the experts that we have on our team are super, super good. And when you give them the ball, they will score a touchdown. And Jack and I have seen that. So have faith.
I like that. Nice.
I would just add that, and I apologize, you may have already said it, but it's so important because it fits so well with this model, is the Dan Sullivan book, Who Not How. It's, listen to it, read it. It's perfect for this.
Yep. Jack, I see you unmuted, and then Al, we'll finish with you.
You just come a long way. I mean, when I got involved 4.5 years ago, and I brought it back to Matt, he was like, "Oh my gosh, what, you're bringing another thing into our business." And the people that are on this call are way ahead of maybe the tools we had, so we could look back and regret that. But I think the message I want to say is, you've got a leg up versus if you started 4 or 5 years ago, because you have all the tools and stuff. So the only excuse is not putting in the work. So it works if you do.